Hello, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to review the Almaden Valley real estate market analysis for June of 2009. My name is Robert Whitelaw, and I'm a licensed real estate broker in the state of California. I'm also a member of the National Association of Realtors and a certified E-Pro, and I am also the president and CEO of Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services, serving all of Silicon Valley. Now, let's go ahead and, contact information. If you'd like to go to my website, you can find all of my other market analysis videos. You can also find my weekly podcasts. You can also look at articles I've written relating to real estate over the years. Feel free to check that out. You can also find all my contact information there as well. If you'd like to email me directly, go ahead and send those to robert@soldbyrobert.com. If you'd like to call me on the phone, just dial 408-852-0525. If you would prefer to contact me via online messaging software, just use AOL Instant Messenger, Google Talk, or Yahoo IM. Screen name there is The Rebel Broker. And if you're a Skype user, Rebel Broker will work for the screen name. And of course, referrals are always appreciated. Or if you or anyone you know is interested in buying or selling or investing in real estate in Silicon Valley, give me a call and I'll help you in any way I can. Or if you're interested in real estate anywhere in the United States, I can jump through the hoops to find you the perfect agent for your needs. Now, let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at the numbers for June of 2009 for Almaden Valley. As usual, we'll start off with those inventory numbers, kind of see where things are going. Now, we're a little bit better than we were last year. That's pretty good news. Now, one thing I'd like to call out to you, if you only watch my Almaden Valley market analysis video, let me suggest that this month, for June, you go ahead and look at the Los Gatos market analysis as well, because it's really very interesting, the difference between these two communities as far as how things are performing right now. And since they're so close, I mean, they're really neighbors to one another. They're both very desirable in their own ways, but there's a very interesting difference in performance between the two, and sort of contrast them in your own mind. It might help you to watch my other video on Los Gatos for this month. Now, as I mentioned here, the inventory numbers really haven't changed substantially for Almaden Valley, and the little change we did get was in a good direction. Inventory is actually down 1.6%. Now, that's only 2 fewer homes currently on the market in Almaden Valley, but that's really great news. It's a mark of stability for this particular market, and that's a good thing. Now, that gives us a grand total of 123 homes currently on the market in Almaden. And for my money, that's a relatively healthy number. I'd actually like to see maybe a little bit less than that. But really, that's not a horrible number. A little bit lower would be great, but right where it is isn't something to get horribly worried about either. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at new listings. These are homes that were put on the market in the month of June. You can see we've had a decrease from last year. Now, that came down 24.56%. From June of last year, June of 2008 to June of 2009, we saw a 24.56% decrease. That's 14 fewer homes listed in the month of June than at the same time last year. Again, that's also good news. That gave us a grand total of 43 homes that were listed in the month of June in Almaden Valley. Why is that good? Well, it helps keep those inventory numbers down. We don't want those inventory numbers to go so high that we get a lot of people panicking and having to wait an awful long time to get those properties sold. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the sold homes numbers. Now, this is also good news. This is up from last year. It's not at a level that's great yet. It's good. It's not. I like to see a balanced market. We'll talk about how well the market's balanced here in just a second. But for right now, things are heading in the right direction for Almaden Valley, and that's good news. Sales are actually up 7.41% from the same time last year. Now, that's only 2 more homes sold this month than this year in the month of June than last year in June, but still, it's heading in the right direction, so that's good news. That gave us a grand total of 29 homes that sold in the month of June. Now, as I like to do, give you sort of a perspective on these numbers. If we were to freeze these numbers as they are right now, it would take about 4.24, about 4 1/4, or 4 months and 1 week to get every home in the inventory sold. Now, that's pretty good. My feeling is that when this number is right around 4 or just a little under 4, that's actually a pretty healthy market. That's a pretty balanced market, and those are the numbers I like to see. So this is a perfectly reasonable number. There's nothing to get upset about with this. It's actually improved from last month. Last month we were at 5 months of inventory on hand. Now, to compare that to the county stands at 3.45 months worth of inventory. So we're underperforming the county by a little bit, which is a little strange because Almaden tends to be a little bit more of an active market. But again, for some of the same reasons I think we see it in Los Gatos, you'll see in a few minutes that I think a lot of buyers' attention isn't on Almaden simply because we don't have as strong a foreclosure and short sale market in Almaden Valley as some other parts of the county do, and that's where really all the attention's going right now. But we'll look at those numbers in a minute. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the same supply and demand numbers going back all the way to January of 2008. Now, on this particular graph, we're seeing every month, and so it's not just the month of June. And why we're doing this is for a couple of reasons. One is you can sort of look back and see the seasonal influences of what happens in summer months versus winter months, those types of things. But also, if we're seeing similar lead-up performance to June of this year as we did last year, then maybe we can apply some of those assumptions to the coming months and try to anticipate what the market's going to do. Now, for inventory numbers, comparing just May to June now, we've seen an inventory drop of 5.38%. So inventory went lower by 7 homes between May and June of 2009, which is a good thing. Can we learn anything from these numbers relating to last year's performance? Well, if we look back to June of last year, you can see that we really had a very opposite performance. June last year was really on par with May. It went a little bit lower, not a whole lot, but we've seen really sort of a steady decline in inventory really since March and April. And last year, you really saw March and April being months of just preceding an increase. So things are a little bit backwards on the inventory numbers here. That usually indicates to me, and this is what clued me into our big market change a couple of years ago for the county, when the market was doing weird things like this, where you didn't see things fitting in with past months. I call those pivotal years, and those are years when the markets change direction. And this is clearly what's happening, I think, this year for Almaden Valley. So does this tell us anything? Well, it tells us we really can't rely on the performance from last year to inform us on how we're going to perform this year. So any expectations we set now for the coming months, I think, have to be based on just an intelligent analysis of where things are heading right now. And right now they're heading down, which is interesting. We usually see an inventory buildup in May and June, and as we head into the summer months, as people put their homes on the market. Fewer people are doing that. So my feeling is that we will see either a continued reduction in inventory or a flattening in inventory in coming months. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the number of homes that were listed. You can see a lot of fluctuation here. A lot of this is very seasonal. You can see in the winter months, of course, that drops way down as people get ready for holiday seasons. This particular time of the year here between May and June, the number stayed relatively flat. Not a lot of people jumping on the bandwagon to get their homes sold. We really sort of peaked out in March, which is interesting. Last year, we peaked out a little. We saw a peak that sort of sustained itself, frankly, last year. We peaked out in April and stayed at that peak all the way until July, and then started to see a little bit of a drop in August and another peak in September, but then continued to decline right through winter. That's a fairly normal expectation. It may be that sellers are seeing that prices just aren't what they want them to be, so they're not jumping on the market right now to get those homes sold. Number of homes listed is up 2.38% from last month. That gives us one more home listed in the month of June and the month of May. Nothing really substantial there. Now, sales. Let's see how many homes have sold. You can see we've had a steady increase in sold homes since January, really, as we've eased into the summer season. So it's been a pretty good market for us. Now, if we look back to last year, you can see that we saw sort of a steady increase as well leading up into the summer months, but this year's been far more drastic and dramatic than last year. It was much more subtle last year, and we sort of peaked out in the months you'd expect. May through July really is where the peak out period occurred. So if we look at those numbers and compare them to this year's numbers, I think we're in for continuing high sales. At this point, we would expect to see sales continue to stay at the same level or higher for the next couple of months, and I don't see any reason to expect that not to happen, frankly. Sales are actually up 11.54% in the short term between May of 2009 and June of 2009. That's 3 more homes sold this month than last month. All good numbers, so I think we can continue to expect that in Almaden Valley. Now, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the short sale and foreclosure situation. In other communities, this is clearly playing a much bigger part. We look at this month and we can see that conventional sales made up 90% of the homes that sold in Almaden Valley. That's excellent, fantastic numbers. but it's double-edged. As I mentioned in the Los Gatos presentation, it's a double-edged sword. While it's good news that we don't have folks having to go into short sales and foreclosures at a level that other communities do, because so many buyers are out there focusing on short sales and foreclosure properties, we're not getting as much buyer attention. But it's the smart buyers that know that this is a great time to get a deal on an Almaden Valley home. So folks are still coming out to Almaden Valley just because it's so attractive for what it has to offer. Now, we had no short sales in Almaden Valley this month, and we only had, I believe, I don't know what the exact number was, 2, 3 foreclosures. So 10% of the overall number was of foreclosures, and that's really all we had. Now, last month, what did we see? We saw 92% conventional, 4% short sales, 4% foreclosure. So we're really operating at really about the same level. I wouldn't call this I wouldn't define this as a decrease in the conventional sales. I mean, it is in strict terms, but because of the small sampling, I think that right when you've gotten to that 90% range, I think we're still good. So I wouldn't call this a move in one direction or another. Really just sort of another marker that we're still at a very, very high level of conventional sales here in Almaden Valley. All right, now let's go ahead and take a look at home prices over the past years. Now, again, this is just homes that have sold in the month of June from 1999 all the way to 2009. And we can see that we've taken our hit. We haven't taken as much of a hit as some other areas. We peaked out in 2007. Some other areas are seeing drops of over 30%, some over 40% in their average home price. Our home price drop here has really only been 16.49% from 2008. That is a dollar value drop of $181,963, and that gave us an average home price in Almaden Valley of $921,446. Now, if we take a look at the median, you can see that the median dropped substantially, actually dropped quite a bit more. It was down 22%. That's a $220,000 drop in terms of just cash drop. And the median price was at $780,000. Now, what does that tell us? That tells us that the bulk of the homes that sold were below average price. So there was a lot more action at the lower priced homes than at the higher priced homes in Almaden Valley. Which I think is fairly normal. But what's interesting is, as I mentioned, if you go and check out Los Gatos, their median and average were right in line with each other. So they really were seeing a very even spread of higher-priced homes to lower-priced homes. Now, this month we had some pretty interesting numbers on the highest and lowest-priced single-family residential homes. Now, the highest-priced single-family residential home in Almaden Valley was at 20548 Almaden Road. It sold for $3,350,000. And according to the multiple listing service, it originally listed for $3,990,000, and that's not entirely the case. It also lists its days on market as 29 days. Well, the reality is that they've been trying to sell this home really since 2002. It first listed, let's see, in 2002, and that originally listed in 2002 for $8,950,000. It was taken off the market for winter between that straddled 08 and 09, and it was relisted on March of 2009, and it was off the market entirely throughout all of 2006 and 2007, and then it was listed again in September of 2008 for the list price of $4,950,000, and between 2002 and 2005, it listed. The price was just steadily dropped, and this is a really interesting example of really the strange things that people thought they could get for their homes, particularly back in 2002. I went back and looked at those numbers, and I really don't see how anyone would have thought that they could list that home at that price and get it. It's a shame because if they had paid attention to the right numbers, not then, but if they'd done it in, say, 2005, which was the last time they'd tried to sell this property, if they looked at the numbers at that point that made sense, if they had listed it correctly then, they would have sold it for more than what they sold it for today in 2009. So that's kind of a shame. But what the real shame here is that this property is going to be listed or sent off into the system, indicating that it only sold for about $6,000 or $600,000 under asking price, when in reality it sold more like 1.6 million below asking price, and was on the market for a heck of a lot more than 29 days. But again, it was taken off that market for the winter time, so that sort of resets everything. Now, the lowest priced home was on 21317 Bertram Road, and that sold for $430,000. And it was listed for $425,000. What's interesting is that it had been previously listed for $699,000. So that's another one that's going to sort of be a little misleading when those numbers come out. And it was on the market for 21 days. According to its listing. Now, the average price per square foot was $412.24. The last month's average price per square foot was $399.79. We did have that one home that sold for a pretty high amount of money for $3.35, so that kind of pushes it up there. But that's not entirely off. I'd say that the average price per square foot is still pretty reasonably clustered right around $400 per square foot for Almaden Valley. All right, now let's go ahead and take a look at the same numbers just over the past months. As I mentioned before, the average home sales price for a single-family residential home in Almaden Valley was $921,446. Between May and June of 2009, we saw the average price increase by 3.82%. That's a $33,881 increase. And the median price we saw decrease by 8.5%. That's a $72,500 drop. Now, this is one of those interesting situations where the median prices dropped and the average price increased. Remember, that's because we sold one really expensive house this month. In real terms, if we were to because that's a statistical anomaly, right? What we would normally see is these average and median numbers a little bit closer together, but that one really high-end home sort of throws the numbers out of whack for us. So let's go ahead and figure out I'm sorry, we already went over those numbers, the percentage change. So 29 total homes sold. So clearly you can see that with that low number, one really high-end property could potentially skew those numbers one direction or another. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the days to sell. We can see that these numbers have really increased. We've got 54 days. I think that's a fairly reasonable number. I don't think I need to shift those one way or another to set expectations. Now, days to sell was up 63.64% from last year. That's a 21-day increase. The lowest days on market was 0 days, so one or more homes sold before they ever were put into the multiple listing service. Longest days on market was 318. Next highest was 199. The homes sold before they were listed were 2. 4 homes sold in 1 to 7 days, 7 homes sold in 8 to 30 days, 11 homes sold in 31 to 90 days, 3 homes sold in 90 to 180 days, 2 homes sold in 180 days or more. That shows us 45% of the homes that sold in 30 days or less, which is a pretty good performance for anybody. Last month, that was at 34% of the homes that sold in 30 days or less. Now, on days to sell, just looking back over past months, we can see that the trend is still sort of on the increase. The days to sell change increased 30.77%. Decreased 30.77% from last month. Gave us 24 fewer days for homes to sell than compared to last month's numbers. Now let's go ahead and take a look at where these homes were located. It's sort of a nice spread. There's no real hot area that seems to be indicating any sort of an interesting geographical trend for the home sold information. So that's just a nice spread of properties, and you like to see it like that. Now, of course, you can always get in touch with me in any of the ways listed above. I won't go ahead and read all those off. I've already bored you enough at the beginning of this presentation with that information. But feel free to get in touch. I'll be happy to help you any way I can. Thanks again for listening, and I will talk to you all next time.